In the heart of the Mediterranean Sea, over 4,000 years ago, a civilization arose that would become one of the first great societies of Europe. The Minoan civilization, named after the legendary king Minos, flourished on the island of Crete from approximately 3000 BCE to 1450 BCE. At its peak, the Minoans created a sophisticated culture defined by grand palaces, intricate artwork, maritime trade and religious traditions. The Minoans were the first advanced civilization on European soil, and their influence reached far across the Mediterranean world. Although much about the Minoans remains a mystery, especially their language and many aspects of their political structure, archaeology has provided invaluable insights into their way of life. Their palatial centers, extensive trade networks, advanced technologies, and vibrant artistic expression all reveal a society that was deeply connected to the world around them. Crete, the cradle of Minoan civilization, is the largest of the Greek islands. Its geography offered a combination of rugged mountains, fertile plains, and an extensive coastline that opened up access to the surrounding seas. Crete's natural bounty allowed early settlers to thrive by cultivating olives, grapes, and grains, while the sea provided ample opportunities for fishing and trade. Archaeological evidence suggests that the island was first settled in the Neolithic period, around 7000 BCE, by farmers and herders. However, it wasn't until around 3000 BCE, during the early Bronze Age, that Crete began to see the rise of a more complex society. By this time, small settlements had grown into larger communities, and the Minoans began to build the first of their iconic palaces. These structures served not just as the residences of rulers, but as administrative, economic, and religious centers, marking the beginning of the Minoan palace culture that would dominate the island for centuries. The palaces of the Minoans stand as the most striking testament to their achievements. The largest and most famous of these, Knossos, covered an area of over 22,000 square meters and featured hundreds of rooms. The palaces were not only the residence of rulers, but also the nerve centers of Minoan life. They were hubs of trade, political power, and religious activity. The palaces were designed around central courtyards, where religious ceremonies and public gatherings likely took place. Unlike later Greek fortresses, Minoan palaces were not fortified, suggesting that the Minoans enjoyed a long period of relative peace and stability. These complexes housed extensive storerooms, workshops, living quarters, and shrines, reflecting the Minoans' centralized control over production and trade. Knossos, Phaistos, Malea, and Zakros were the most important of these palace centers. Each of these sites reveals the Minoans' impressive engineering skills, including advanced plumbing systems with running water and sewage facilities. The palaces were adorned with frescoes that depict scenes from Minoan life, including religious rituals, marine life, and athletic activities like bull leaping, a famous and mysterious Minoan sport. The Minoan civilization was unique in its apparent lack of military focus. Unlike the later Mycenaeans, who were often depicted as warriors, the Minoans appeared to have been a peaceful people. Their island was naturally protected by the sea, and their vast fleet allowed them to control the waters surrounding Crete, giving them dominance over trade in the Aegean and beyond. Trade was the lifeblood of Minoan society. Minoan ships traveled as far as Egypt, the Levant, and Anatolia, carrying goods such as olive oil, wine, wool, and pottery. In return, they brought back precious materials like copper, tin, and ivory, commodities that were not readily available on Crete. This wealth fueled the Minoan economy and allowed for the construction of their grand palaces and religious sanctuaries. Minoan religion was deeply intertwined with nature, and much of their religious practice centered around the worship of powerful female deities. The most iconic religious figures from Minoan Crete are the snake goddesses, figures often depicted holding snakes in each hand, symbolizing fertility, protection, and the connection between the earthly and divine realms. The Minoans also revered the bull, a symbol of strength and virility. The bull-leaping frescoes from Knossos suggest that bulls played a central role in Minoan rituals. Religious ceremonies were conducted in both palatial sanctuaries and remote mountain shrines known as peak sanctuaries. These mountaintop temples were thought to bring worshippers closer to the divine, and offerings of pottery, figurines and food were left at these sites. The sacred caves of Crete, such as the famous Cave of Zeus, also played a role in Minoan religious practices. One of the most famous legends associated with Minoan religion is the myth of the Minotaur. According to later Greek mythology, the Minotaur was a half-man, half-bull creature that lived in a labyrinth beneath the palace of Knossos. This myth, though of later Greek origin, may reflect the importance of bulls in Minoan religious life and the labyrinth-like complexity of their palaces. Minoan art is among the most vivid and expressive of the ancient world. Their frescoes, pottery and metalwork reveal a society that was deeply connected to the natural world. Minoan artists drew inspiration from the sea, with images of dolphins, octopuses and fish frequently appearing in their art. The Minoans also excelled in depicting human figures, often shown in fluid, dynamic poses, a contrast to the more rigid art styles of their contemporaries in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Perhaps the most famous example of Minoan art is the Prince of the Lilies fresco, discovered at Knossos. This striking image shows a young man wearing a crown of lilies, symbolizing youth and vitality. Other frescoes, such as the dolphin fresco from the Queen's Megaron, demonstrate the Minoans' deep appreciation for marine life. One of the greatest mysteries of the Minoan civilization is their written language, known as Linear A. This script, which appears on clay tablets and seal stones, has yet to be deciphered. Linear A was likely used for administrative purposes, keeping records of trade, production, and religious offerings. However, without a clear understanding of the language, much of the Minoans' inner world remains hidden from us. Despite the mystery surrounding Linear A, it is clear that the Minoans had a highly developed system of record-keeping. This system was later adapted by the Mycenaeans, who used a similar script known as Linear B, a form of early Greek. The survival of Linear B tablets has provided valuable insights into the Mycenaean civilization, but the Minoans' world remains more elusive. Minoan society appears to have placed a significant emphasis on the role of women, particularly in religious and social life. Unlike many other ancient civilizations where women were often relegated to the domestic sphere, Minoan women are frequently depicted in positions of prominence. In religious contexts, women are shown participating in ceremonies, often as priestesses or figures of authority. The snake goddess statues found at Knossos further emphasize the importance of female divinity in Minoan religious practice. The prominence of women in Minoan art and religious iconography suggests that they may have held a central role in the administration of religious life and possibly even governance. The frescoes from Knossos, such as the Ladies in Blue and the Procession fresco, portray women wearing elaborate garments, suggesting a high status within society. This stands in contrast to the male-dominated societies of many other contemporary civilizations. By 1450 BCE, the Minoan civilization experienced a series of catastrophic events that led to its decline. The most significant of these was the eruption of the volcano on the nearby island of Thera, now known as Santorini. This massive eruption, one of the largest in human history, devastated much of the Minoan world. The eruption likely caused a series of earthquakes and tsunamis that destroyed coastal settlements and severely weakened the Minoan economy. While the eruption of Thera was not the sole cause of the Minoan collapse, it undoubtedly played a significant role. The destruction of trade networks, combined with the environmental devastation, left the Minoans vulnerable to outside influences. In the following years, the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece began to assert their dominance over Crete, eventually taking control of Knossos and integrating many aspects of Minoan culture into their own. Although the Minoan civilization ultimately fell, its legacy endured. The Mycenaeans, who took control of Crete after the Minoan decline, adopted many aspects of Minoan culture, including their art, architecture, and religious practices. Minoan motifs can be seen in Mycenaean pottery, frescoes, and jewelry, while the myth of the Minotaur and the labyrinth of Knossos became central elements of later Greek mythology. Today, the ruins of Knossos stand as a testament to the ingenuity and creativity of the Minoans. Their achievements in art, engineering, and trade laid the foundation for future civilizations, and their influence can still be felt in the cultures of the Mediterranean. The story of the Minoans is one of triumph, innovation, and mystery, an ancient civilization whose echoes continue to resonate through history.